investor, Samsung, SK Hynix, what I would ask them is, what is going to be the cash flow 20 years from now? If an investor cannot answer those questions, they should not buy the stock.
가치 투자를 유명하시잖아요. 자, 그렇다면 이렇게 투자를 하실 때 본인만의 기업 분석 방식이 있으실까요?
Basically, I follow Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's approach to investing. There are three important checklist items, which generally means that
안녕하세요. 전 세계 리더들의 지혜를 깊이 있게 들어보는 글로벌 초대석. 오늘은 워렌 버핏과의 점심 식사를 7억 원에 낙찰받은 분이자 현재는 1조 원 규모의 자산을 운영하는 가치투자자 모니시 파브라이님을 모셨습니다. 안녕하세요.
Hello, good to be here. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm a money manager. I manage about $1.4 billion.
The pleasure is all ours. 그런데 유명한 점심 식사 이야기가 있어요. 워렌 버핏과의 점심 식사를 7억 원에 낙찰을 받으셨는데 돌이켜봤을 때 그 돈이 충분히 가치가 있었다라고 느끼시나요?
Yeah, the lunch from my point of view was one of the best deals ever. It was a true bargain when you look back now for what transpired after that. If we were alive in the time of Newton or Einstein, and if we had a chance to sit down and have lunch with them, the two questions that come up is, would we want to do that? And secondly, what might you be willing to pay for that? So I think Warren Buffett might be similar in their class of people, most accomplished investor ever, best investor ever. He was alive versus all these people who are dead, and he was willing to take a bribe to have a lunch meal. And I had based my entire career on his intellectual property, learning from him. And by that time in 2007, I had made more than $70 million directly from applying the principles of Warren Buffett. So I felt like a tuition bill was due. So I asked myself, what is an appropriate tuition bill to pay to a teacher who has made you $70 million richer? And I thought 3% would be pretty reasonable, might even be low. 3% was about $2 million. And as it turned out, the bidding ended extremely low, $650,000, less than 1/3 of our budget. My only agenda and interest in doing the lunch was to thank Mr. Buffett, is to look him in the eye and thank him and so on. I did not expect anything more beyond that. Mr. Buffett has very different expectations from these lunches.
Yeah, what did he offer during that lunch?
His expectation is that he wants whoever won the lunch to feel like they got a big bargain. So even when someone is paying $26 million, his focus is on making sure that the guy who paid the $26 million believes after the lunch that they got a big bargain. And so when Mr. Buffett came for the lunch, his agenda was to make sure that he delivered a lot of value to us. And so the first thing he told us, so even before the lunch, his assistant gathered resumes and bios for all of us. He had studied every person who was coming. So he knew everyone well. He knew everyone's background. And the second is, he told us when he came for the lunch that there was no time limit. The lunch was starting around 1 o'clock. He said, I have nothing to do all afternoon. So he says, I am here for as long as you want me to be here. When you get tired of me, you let me know and I will leave. Now, I had another charity lunch with someone who was the CEO of Google at that time, Eric Schmidt. That lunch was very different. Eric Schmidt's lunch took place in a cafeteria on the Google campus. Okay. And every 15 minutes, he was looking at his watch. That lunch was scheduled for 1 hour. At 1 hour, at 1 minute, he was gone. So if I were to rate the two lunches, the Eric Schmidt lunch, 2 out of 10. I am a fair grader. It might be 1 out of 10 because there's nothing I remember about it. There's nothing I remember which I can say, oh, this thing he said changed my life.
What about the Warren Buffett?
Warren Buffett, 15 out of 10.
15 out of 10. Wow.
15 out of 10. And the reason it went beyond 100% is that a number of reasons. During the lunch, my wife was with me at the lunch, and I told Mr. Buffett that she is a big fan of yours. But the true love of her life is Charlie Munger, not Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett got very competitive. He said, my partner, Charlie Munger, is a very boring person. He's a useless person to have lunch with. I am the one who is interesting, not Charlie. And he says, because you don't know Charlie, think he's interesting, I'm going to set you guys up to have lunch with Charlie.
Oh my gosh.
And after that lunch, you will understand that I am the better lunch partner. Okay. So I thought he was joking about all this. But then 2 days after the lunch, I see an email from his assistant to Charlie's assistant copying me, setting up the lunch with us and Charlie.
Wow.
And telling Charlie in that email that this couple who also live in California, they seem to think you are more interesting than me. Charlie, you know that I am more interesting. So you're going to meet them and then they will know. Okay. And when I met with Charlie for lunch, first of all, I enjoyed the lunch with Charlie much more than Warren Buffett.
I don't think that's what he wants to hear, though.
Yeah, well, his plan backfired. And the second thing that happened was that friendship got formed with Charlie. And after that, I used to meet him probably with my family or my wife once every 3-4 months at his home for dinner. Like I told you before, my agenda was none of these things. My agenda was just to spend the $2 million, pay the tuition bill, thank my hero.
Right.
And that was it. So it was a very wonderful, warm friendship.
대표님께서 워낙에 가치 투자를 유명하시잖아요. 예전에 한국 시장을 굉장히 저평가된 마켓이다. 그래서 기회가 많다. 이렇게 말씀을 하신 적이 있는데 2026년 현재 한국 주식 시장은 어떻게 보고 계신가요?
Korean market currently is very lopsided because of what is happening with SK Hynix and Samsung.
Right. The semiconductor industry is really,
Yeah. And the thing is, so the good news is that there is a massive tailwind which South Korea is a beneficiary of because they are providing the pickaxes in a gold rush with SK Hynix, and I have visited with Samsung many times, and I used to have an investment SK Hynix, and it's very unfortunate that I violated my own rule and I sold these companies when they should have been kept forever. But these businesses, the SK Hynix and Samsung memory business, is a very protected business. For a long time, the memory business was a useless business. There used to be 20 different memory companies. They were fighting each other and cutting the price and trying to get higher capacity. And in the end, no one would make any money. And eventually, they went out of business, so they got bought out, and we end up with 3 memory companies: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. It is almost impossible for a 4th new player to come into this business. When I was interacting with the senior management of Micron, they told me that, and so for a new entrant to come in, first of all, they would have to violate a lot of patents. Secondly, they would have to secure a lot of senior engineers and managers and so on, very difficult. And because the density of the chips is so high, the processes are so complicated. Opening a new fab is so complicated. And thirdly, it would take them 10, 15, 20 years to do it. So these companies are not able to keep up with the demand right now. So if you have a Samsung mobile phone or an iPhone, the price of that is already gone up because the memory price has gone up. And the next generation, all the electronic prices. So when you look at a country like Korea, the indices are dominated by these 2 companies. They make up a large portion of the Kospi index. So it has been a wonderful ride for investors. So I would just say the following, that if you already own it, don't sell it. The party has only just started.
Oh, wow. So do you think the Kospi would continue to rally?
Well, and the rest of the Kospi, my feeling is still be somewhat undervalued. But the headwind the Kospi faces is the population decline. South Korea is going down, very rapid rate. It's going down at a faster rate than even Japan. In the long run, any civilization which has a declining population is going to have a challenge with total output of the country. And that will get reflected eventually in the stock market. So if we take a country like Korea, or if we take a country like Japan, with a declining population, the only way that GDP can grow in some decent way is by being an export powerhouse. And Korea is an export powerhouse. But then what we have, there are 2 issues, for example, that start happening. One is countries like the US start reacting with tariffs and so on, which is the negative. The second is that because of the declining population, the labor costs are going up spectacularly. So if you look at companies in Korea which do not have an export bias, those companies face real challenges. And the ones that do have an export bias, they have some tailwind, but they're also, it depends on what's going on. Like I would say that even the Hyundais of the world, which are fabulous businesses, have challenges because of that. For example, it's cheaper to produce a car in Alabama than it is to produce it in Korea. And so the production is going to get moved to China and India and Alabama and so on, which has already happened. That is the negative from the Korean point of view. Ideally, Korea would have an increasing population.
자, 그렇다면 이렇게 투자를 하실 때 본인만의 기업 분석 방식이 있으실까요?
Basically, I follow Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's approach to investing, which generally means that we think of stocks as portions of businesses. We don't think of them as pieces of paper. And when we are going to buy a stock, we approach it as if we were going to buy the whole company. And so we're basically looking investments that we can hold ideally forever.
Forever, right?
Anytime we have to sell something, we have made a mistake. And let me go one step further. Anytime most market participants are selling anything, they have made a mistake.
Oh, so we have to really keep it for the long run, according to your philosophies.
And my checklist came from the aviation industry.
Aviation?
Aviation. In the US, the regulator of commercial airlines and airplanes, FAA, Federal Aviation Authority, anytime there's a plane crash, they send a lot of investigators, find out why the plane crashed. After they find out why the plane crashed, if it has something to do with some aspect of the design or the engineering of the airplane, they are going to look at things very pragmatically. Okay, they would try to make an estimate of how many crashes would take place and how many humans would die. So they're going to say, okay, let's say we make no changes. In the next 10 years, or in the next 20 years, if we make no changes, how many humans would die? The FAA has a definition of what a human life is worth. I think the current number is around $5 million. Let's say, for example, some airplane crashes and they find that if this issue is not fixed, over every 10 years, 500 people will die. So they will take the number 500, multiply by 5 million, and that's $2.5 billion. So whatever fix they are going to tell the airline industry to make has to cost less than $2.5 billion. If the fix is going to cost 20 billion, for example, they will not do the fix. Because the FAA takes a pragmatic approach to how it does this, two things have happened with aviation. Number one, aviation is very safe. And number two, flying is very cheap. If the FAA took an approach which said a human life is worth infinite, it would cost $250,000 to fly from LA to Seoul. So they have taken a middle ground. And the only changes that ever get made in aviation for safety is after a plane crash. They never sit in a lab and say, let's make this change or that change to make things safer. They only do it after a plane crash. So I said, let's apply aviation investing. What is the equivalent of a plane crash in investing? A stock where you lost money. Or which went to zero. And a stock that went down, you sold at a loss, that's a crash with some survivors. So I said what we are going to do is we're going to only make changes to my investment approach based on crashes. So I said, okay, let's go look at the great investors of the world and let's look at the mistakes they made. Right. And then let's see if it was visible before they lost the money.
So were you looking for like signs?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that before a plane takes off, can we tell that it's going to crash or not? And to give you an example, Warren Buffett, he made an investment a few decades back in a shoe company called Dexter Shoes. Dexter Shoes made shoes in the United States. And Warren Buffett gave them 2% of Berkshire stock to buy that company. Now, what happened almost immediately after he bought the company is the shoe business faced lots of foreign competition from China, Vietnam, etc. Their cost of manufacturing in the US was too high. And what ended up happening is Dexter Shoes went out of business. That was a crash with no survivors. So question I asked myself was, is this a business that can be negatively affected by cheap foreign labor or cheap foreign competition? So when I'm looking at a company, I have this question. Let's say I'm looking like, now a bank in the US is not going to be affected by foreign labor. So the question doesn't apply. But if I'm looking at a bicycle manufacturer in the US, that could get affected. checklist to say, Monish, don't go there. You can see what happened to Dexter. So I made a checklist based on the crashes only. And I started making this checklist 16 or 17 years ago. It used to have 70 or 80 questions. Now it has 213 questions. And it doesn't take very long. Usually the first time I run the checklist, I cannot answer a bunch of questions, which means I have not done the work. Let's go figure out how to answer those questions. Then we come back and then we find all the questions where there's a failure. And then we look at those failures and say, based on these failures, do we want to take off or not? We can make that decision. The checklist is fantastic.
So do you do this every time you're looking at a new company? You do all 230 questions?
Absolutely. A pilot does not take off before running the pre-investment checklist. For an individual investor, when they are about to invest, there are three important things that are important checklist items that they should look at.
Oh, please tell us.
The number one reason why investors lose money in investments is because of leverage. So the company has too much debt, or the investors themselves are using debt to buy stock. So the most important thing when you're trying to make an investment is try to make investments in companies that have no leverage. Are you familiar with a company called IKEA?
Of course.
All right. IKEA is a private company. Never went public. It's privately held. The founder of IKEA, who passed away a few years back, in his whole life of building IKEA, he ran IKEA for more than 70 years. He did not borrow even €1. He did not want to borrow money at all. And IKEA never went public to raise money in the public markets either. Every single store was opened out of the retained earnings from the previous stores. And the reason he did that is Ingmar, who was the founder, he wanted it to last for 1,000 years. Because if we don't owe anyone any money, no one can come and stop us from playing our game. It's a very important thing for investors to not borrow money and not invest in companies. So the best companies in the world do not need debt to grow. They can grow without debt because their business is so good. The second reason why investments don't do well is investors misunderstand the competitive advantage or the moat of the company, what Buffett calls the moat. What is the competitive advantage of the company? Say, for example, I look at a company like Amor Pacific. You may be customer of Amor Pacific. I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about Amore Pacific.
Are you a customer?
Oh, very loyal.
All right, very loyal. There you go. Okay. Now, the thing is, women all over the world want their skin to be like Korean women. They are envious of the skin of Korean women. But I think that that's a business, even though Amore Pacific has done extremely well, that is a difficult business. The issue is that there are so many companies trying to attack that market.
Right.
And women are constantly seeking even better treatments. So it is possible that a company like Amore Pacific may do well for a while, but they constantly face pressure. So sometimes a business like that, and especially a business which doesn't have a brand, but which has a great product, may not make it because the market is so difficult. So the second is to try to understand the durability of the moat of the business. And the third most important thing is the quality and ethics of the managers and the owners of the business.
So governance in one word?
Yeah, the governance and what is the quality of the people who are running the business. Do they care about the shareholders or do they care about becoming wealthy themselves? It's okay for them to like the money, but they cannot love the money. Do they love the money or do they love the business?
Oh, okay. That's a good question to ask.
If an investor, forget the 213 questions, no leverage, quality of moat, quality of the people. If the investor just focused on these three main issues, that will save you a lot of trouble.
일반 투자자들은 여러 가지 유형이 있잖아요. 대표님처럼 한 기업을 공부를 해서 투자를 하는 분들도 있고 인덱스 펀드 같은 데 넣는 분들도 있는데 단일 종목 장기 투자하는 거 아니면 S&P 500을 모으는 거 어떤 거를 더 추천을 하시나요?
For more than 99% of investors, they should just buy the index.
Why is that?
The reason is that when an investor wants to buy SK Hynix, they say, I don't want to buy index fund. I understand semiconductors. I understand AI. I think this company will do well, right? What I would ask them is, what is going to be the cash flow SK Hynix will generate 10 years from now? 20 years from now. And if an investor cannot answer those questions with a high degree of certainty, they should not buy the stock. Now, when you ask that question for some businesses, the answer can be very obvious. So for example, let's say there is a power company in Korea. People cannot change their power company every year. And the regulator allows the power company to make a certain return. So it's a very well understood, well regulated business. Okay. Let's say the power company is making 100 million a year and you can buy the whole company for 300 million, which means that if you hold that company for 3 years and they are issuing dividends of 100% of their earnings, you get all your money back. That has become a no-brainer risk-free investment. Those are the only investments we are interested in. So usually the risk-free investments are in sectors that are hated and unloved. If something is loved, please don't buy. So what we are looking for in investing, we are looking for anomalies. We're looking for things that don't make sense.
How would we apply this though in like the AI sector, let's say?
The way we apply it in the AI sector is we're not going to go.
How do you mean so?
Already told you, hated and unloved.
Hated and unloved, okay.
Cannot go to things that are loved. AI is very deeply loved. You know what used to be deeply loved? Bitcoin. Bitcoin used to be deeply loved. And then when AI came, there was the next shiny object. So all those people who had Bitcoin, they dumped all their Bitcoin and they bought the AI. Bitcoin went from 100,000 to 70,000. Now, the people who own AI, they are going to be selling AI very soon. And they're going to buy the next shiny object. Do you know what the next shiny object they're going to buy is? SpaceX. The IPO of SpaceX is coming.
For the biggest ever, right?
And it's a very big, shiny object. So they will sell all their AI. First, they sold all the Bitcoin and they bought the AI. Please don't buy shiny objects.
Okay, solid advice.
But you know, the sad part is,
What's the sad part?
the sad part is people will listen to this. They will be entertained by my mustache.
It is a great mustache.
But they're going to go buy SpaceX.
자, 마지막으로 이 질문은 대표님께 꼭 드리고 싶어요. 약간 철학적인 질문이기도 한데 대표님을 계속 투자하게 만드는 원동력은 무엇인가요?
Now, I don't really care about the money because beyond a certain point, it's of no use to you. I'm playing a game. So first of all, to play this game, I have to know when I'm going to die. The good news now with AI is you can go to God Google. And God Google told me, Monish, you are going to die on June 11th, 2054. And I said, thank you so much, God Google. You made life so easy. So June 11, 2054, I'm going to die. Now, what I want to do one day before I die is I want to have $10,000. So I have one engine which is compounding money. And I have another engine which is giving money away, the Dakshana Foundation, which helps poor kids in India and so on get good education and all that. And Dakshana generates very high returns. So as I'm compounding, I need to give away. So over time, the giveaway needs to become more accelerated. And so I'm just playing games, basically. So that by June 10th, 2054, it's all gone. And if I've done that, then it's been a beautiful game.
That's beautiful. So you earn more to give more, right? To return to society.
In the meanwhile, I'm hoping that I get to have a lot of Korean meals. I'm very biased towards the comfort food.
What's your favorite Korean dish?
The sundabu,
Oh, sundabu is great.
bulgogi. And you know, I'm a simple man. Just give me the bulgogi and the sundabu and I'm good to go. Let me put a couple of eggs into it and that's it.
Right. One last word to live by if you want to be wealthy. By Monish. Let's end with that.
Well, I would just close with this quote that if wealth is lost, nothing is lost. If health is lost, something is lost. And if character is lost, everything is lost. So don't worry about the wealth, worry a little bit about the health, and worry everything about your character.
감사합니다. 네, 저희는 다음에도 더 재미있고 유익한 주제로 찾아오겠습니다. 시청해주신 여러분 고맙습니다.